It's that time, boys and girls. Time to make a few rogue builds. Roll it. Welcome back, Your Highnesses, distinguished guests, humans, non-humans, and prestigious honorable attendees. And of course, let's not forget the window lickers. And a quick thank you to my channel members. And I got 4 more new members in one day yesterday.
And as always, brofist.
Which was shocking, but I am extremely grateful for that. So, welcome to my new members, Leanne, Jay Yor, Hallelujah, and Kenny Bird. And I'd also like to thank Jabberwocky, Mel Adams, Trevor, Juice, Billy, Dan Chan, Ant-Man, Nasina, and Fowlan for their continued support. That makes 13 members. Wow, I'm just, speechless. Forever humbled. Thank you. I appreciate you guys. Also, a huge shout out to Brunor Battlehammer. His comment in our interactions is on your screen now. He donated $50 to me for some reason. I don't think I deserve it, but thank you very much. It's nice to feel appreciated, and I will continue to grind and provide entertainment as much as possible. And if you are the jealous types and also want to become members of my YouTube page, click join down here next to the sub button. Also make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. It's completely free. And so is liking my videos. And if you do enjoy my goofy videos, possibly hit the bell button too to get notifications for all my uploads and share them to your guildies and friends as well. It really helps me out. All that being said, how are you all doing? I hope you are all healthy or trying to be. And of course, having tons of sex, even if that means having one-on-ones with a plastic blow-up doll that you named Chastity. And seriously, I'm not judging you. You only live once, and like my best friend used to say, I'll screw a snake if you hold its head. Also consider joining my Discord. The link is in the description. As soon as you join though, remember, you have to scroll all the way to the bottom and click a little check mark, and then Discord will just magically open up to you. So today marks the beginning of my updated rogue build videos, and we will start with an optimized dragon killer build for the very first build of the series, since dragons are a thing now.
How do you choose to die?
And this build could help you do more damage in the long run, since more dragons are most likely coming to Neverwinter in the future too. But this won't be the end. I'm also going to make some augmented and striker builds soon after this video, non-dragon related. Also keep in mind these builds can be and are mostly out of reach for newer players, but still it can help you set goals that you can try and reach and also get a taste of what this build is trying to achieve and either recreate the exact build, copy pasta it, or make a few adjustments depending on what gear you may or may not have compared to this build, and create your own version of this build to suit your needs. There's nothing wrong with that. So obviously I can't cover every possible change or build variation, so I'll show you my Dragon Killer build with maybe a few slight changes to gear along the way. Also, I won't get into huge explanations since I have 4 or more builds on the way. Plus you can give more information with less sometimes. I don't think anybody wants to watch 30-minute videos, but I will show you what I have with some explanations on why these choices were made, while also mentioning some gear alternatives to this build. And obviously I will also provide timestamps in the description. I hope you guys all enjoy this new format. I think it's easier to follow while still providing basic information, but not over-explaining things. I'm not too fond of huge and lengthy videos anyways. But trust me, you'll have enough information here to understand what's going on. Alright, so let's begin with the race choice. For this build, I personally use the Guess race for the extra 5% combat advantage, but you can obviously choose any race you prefer, since race differences are minimal, but there are a few races that help you more than others if you're trying to cap specific stats that you might be having trouble with. So here's my top 3 race choices for rogues. Any of these will do just fine. You just have to swap some stats around if you follow this build 100% of the way. Also make sure when you choose the race or if you decide to reroll to the Guess to pick strength and dexterity in your initial race rolls. Other than that, there isn't much more we can say about races. Let's quickly move on to our main gear setup on our character sheet. And as you can see on your screen, here's my sexy as fuck Guess. And, I only covered his face with a mask because he is so handsome that I'm afraid he will get all the ladies wet and the men even wetter. Harder. TMI? Maybe? So like I said, time to move on to the actual gear choices. So let's start with the left side of our character sheet with our helms, armor, gloves, and boots. The helm choice wasn't a difficult one to make since it's the upgraded version of the older Garistro's horns, so we have chosen the Serene Hood of the Dragon Hunter in its stead. The obvious reason is the equip bonus that grants you 10% crit strike at max stats. The elevated combined rating, stats, and item level also helps you dish out slightly more damage. Alternatives to this would be the Garistro's horns, which has the exact same bonus. For the armor piece, we have the exact same situation as the Garistro's horns did with a Serene Hood. Unfortunately, Cryptic likes to recycle things. A lot. So my choice here is obviously the tactful leathers of the Dragon Hunter, which is an upgraded version of the older ribcage. This chest piece is by far the best for rogues, with its 7.5 crit severity and crit strike equip bonus, which is 15% in stat contributions overall. Sadly, the only good alternative to this is the older ribcage. I mean, you can also use the Midnight Cuirass, but you'd have to make up for 15% stats in total through other means like companions or shifting around stats. For the gloves, I've personally chosen a pretty expensive route, but it does pay off, and that's thanks to Northside. I actually have a video of Northside crafting my gloves in this video right here, and the link will also be in the description if you care to watch it. So as I said, thanks to Northside, I have chosen the Petrified Wristlets for the equip bonus named Survivor's Finesse, which grants you 7,500 critical severity when your health is above 50%, and also 7,500 deflection when it's below 50% health points. Obviously, I'm after the crit severity, and using these gloves gives me way more flexibility with companion bonuses and stats, which in turn lets me cap much easier. It's an expensive choice, but it's well worth it in my opinion. Of course, you can get by without it and with different choices, but this specific build works great with these gloves, hence why I've chosen them for my Dragon Killer build. A great alternative to this is obviously the wrist guards of Precipitation, if you need the power instead. For boots, I've chosen the very well-known Wasteland Wanderers. Of course, for this position, there are a few other choices we can go for, but these are the perfect boots for what I was trying to achieve without overcapping, and they were chosen for the sole purpose of granting me 5% more combat advantage. The decently high item level and the combined rating is also a plus for dishing out some extra damage, but it's mostly for the much sought after 5% combat advantage like I said earlier. You can also maybe try the new Mythic Serene Boots of the Dragon Hunter that grant you 7,500 power if you have power issues, or maybe the Forest Guardian Boots for the 7,500 combat advantage stats. Now let's move on to the weapon choices. Here there's usually tons of debate in regards to what's best, and you can do fine with many different types of weapons, like the Mastercraft, the Lionheart, or the COK weapons. But my choice, despite the low item level compared to other choices, is the Mirage set. Those illusions do a ton of damage, and are really great at dishing out single target damage. But feel free to use whatever you prefer. And on a side note, just so you are aware, it is not always better for you as a DPSer to use Mastercraft weapons, because 5 players using 5 Masterwork weapons caps you at around 10% damage. But if at least 3 or 4 people in your party use Mastercrafts, and you use Mirage or Lionheart for example, you'll do more than 10% damage, since they're adding percentage damage on top of your already pretty high damage percentage output from your weapons. But of course 5 Masterworks is good too, and not using them is a bit more selfish, but I'll cover that topic in another video at some point. So yeah, the Mirage weapons are the choice for this build. Also, as far as the main hand modifications go, I used Enhanced Duelist Flurry, and it grants me 10% extra damage while using Duelist Flurry. And on the offhand, I went for the accuracy modifications and the recharge speed modification. Now, let's move on to the right side of the character sheet and the rest of our main gear. First, let's begin with the Mythallar set, which includes the neck, waist, and the artifact. This set is currently best in slot for rogues, with that extra magnitude damage that gets dealt from combat advantage, and because of it proccing the Band of Air. That is probably going to change in the future, but for now it works pretty good. Secondary sets you can use can be the Demogorgon set, or what I call the Star Choker set. Now let's go to the rings. The first ring I use for the build is the new Mythic Soothsayer's Ring of Absolution, which grants me 7% crit strike. I prefer this to the 10% damage to dragons because I prefer capping stats easier. Plus I have other dragon killing items and gear further along down this video. Plus I also quite enjoy the 5000 Forte it grants me too. Of course you can always use the Mightbringer's Ring of Elegance that grants you 10% damage to dragons if you prefer it, but you'd have to shuffle some stats around if you're following this build. For my second ring slot choice, obviously I have the Band of Air for its insane damage output, but if you don't have the Band of Air, I'd either use the Red Eyes Glare to get some power and some extra accuracy, along with some extra crit severity and stats, or a percentage damage ring like the Queen's Golden Opal Ring, or the new mythic ring, Wayseeker's Ring of Punishment, that gives you 8% at-will damage. Obviously, as you know, if you change any items out of my original choices, there will need to be some adjustments made, since this build is fine-tuned with everything I have now. For the shirt, I used the corroded shirt for the 5% combat advantage, and I know this can get you killed slightly more often when you go to dragons, but I usually have no problems. But if you can cap CA without it, then feel free to use any shirt you want, preferably with the stats you need or the bonus you enjoy most. And as for the pants, it really doesn't matter much. Just choose whatever you want. The new legendary pants are good, and so are a few others. I prefer the velvet pants here, since they fit in perfectly with my build, since they have 2 offensive stats. And as far as the reinforcements go, I have 2 major accuracies and 2 major crit severities on my main gear, followed up by 4 combat advantage reinforcements on my neck belt and 2 rings. And as far as ability stats go, you can go all STR or all charisma. Me personally, I went for all STR, 2 clicks in dexterity, and the rest in charisma, just to balance out my stats just right. But you feel free to do it the way you feel is best for you. That's it for the main character sheet. Now it's time to move on to our enchantments, artifacts, and overloads. Things here are not that complicated. I have 4 jades for the crit strike at mythic, 4 garnets in the defensive slot for the defense, and 1 garnet in utility for the forte. I also have the movement bonus in the bonus slot, since moving fast is always a good thing, especially in dragons. I also use the poison thorn, of course, because it's the best single target enchantment. And for the overloads, I use the devil's precision for the 5% accuracy and the 5% crit strike to help cap my stats. And in the second spot, I use the Dragon Slayer one from the Strongholds for an extra 10% damage versus dragons. And you can also use the Rage of Flames, that's absolutely fine too. That's up to you. And lastly, for our 3 remaining artifact slots, I use the Storyteller's Journals. They're extremely good because they have a chance at proccing the Band of Air, and they also give you the extra power and bonuses which you see on your screen now. If you don't have the journals, just use high item level artifacts with stats that you need, and possibly some artifacts that you could debuff with. At least one anyways. Powers. The powers I use are pretty basic. Most of rogues use this, but I'm going to go over them really quickly. Obviously, for your left click or right click, you're going to use Duelist Flurry for the extra damage and for applying bleeds onto your targets. Duelist Flurry is our go-to at will. And for my right click, I use Gloaming Cut. I don't use it as much, but I do use it when my bleed stacks are maxed out, and I do a couple of Gloaming Cuts in between, and then I go back to using my Duelist Flurry or my encounters. For encounters, I use the Path of Blades, Wicked Reminder, and Assassinate. My daily is always going to be Shocking Execution. For class features, I use Oppressive Darkness and Skillful Infiltrator for that extra 10% movement speed and a little bit of crit strike. And in dragons, movement speed is pretty important. That's why I use it. For feats, we go down, 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 up, down, which is Toxic Blades, Master of Shadows, Skullcracker, Back Alley Tactics, and of course, Shadow's Flurry. But if you're having problems capping your stats, you could always remove Back Alley Tactics, shift it down to Hastily Sharpened Blades, and get an extra 5 to 6% crit strike, which will not show up on your character sheet, but it's definitely being applied. It has been tested, so don't worry about that. For guild boons, if you're going to follow this build, use power, use defense, and you can use movement speed. It's fine to shift movement speed around. You can put like Revive Sickness or whatever else if you don't have it, but this is the main setup I have. For campaign boons, this is just a copy-paste thing. I don't have to go and explain every single one of them. Just copy-paste these. Like just pause the video right here and copy-paste it if that's what you want to do. As far as companion goes, this build is an augmented build. Since I do prefer augmented builds for the capped stats, I just don't enjoy the companions dying so much. I want my companion to be fully operational at all times. So here, I use Glistening Grimoire of the Companion for the combat advantage, and the Glistening Talisman of the Companion for the crit severity. I have 2 of those. And obviously you use your companion enhancement. Here I use Precision for the 7.5% crit strike. I also use 3 damage companions. One of them is the Batiri for the 11% extra damage versus bosses. The other one is the Bigger They Are for up to 8.6% damage versus strong enemies. And of course I use Dragon's Bane for 11% damage versus dragon creatures. And to help me cap my power and my stats, here I use Dog's Instincts, which gives me crit severity and power. And here I use Barbarian Shaman's Wisdom, which gives me combat advantage and power. I will show you on the dummies in a minute exactly how this caps. Also, in regards to my mounts, I use the Giant Toad Tongue Lash and Ferocity to help me proc my Band of Air more. And even if you don't have a Band of Air, you can still get extra damage off of this. But if you prefer stats, or if you're having trouble capping certain stats, definitely remove this and put the stat that you need. As far as my stable goes, obviously I have 5 mythic collars, but you could do just fine with epic ones as well, or legendary. The collars I've chosen, as you can see on your screen, is crit severity, encounter damage, astral diamonds. This one is mostly just for the item level because astral diamonds do not help you in battle. Movement speed, which does help you in battle, and stamina, which does help you in battle. My Insignia bonuses is Artificer Persuasion for the 2% cooldowns. I have 2 Assassin's Covenant to help me cap my stats, and 2 Gladiator's Guiles because moving faster in dragons is always a good thing. All my Insignias are based on power and forte for the most part, as you can see on your screen right now. Sometimes in the position of forte there will be crit severity, but that's because I have no choice. Now let's get into the consumables I use while fighting dragons. So I use Sunlord's Gift Elixir, which gives me accuracy and 5% combat advantage. I use Flask of Potency rank 3 to give me crit strike, accuracy, power, and mostly for the 5% crit severity. I also use Squash Soup to increase my crit strike by 5% and my crit severity by another 5%. And of course, you can use either of these dragon slaying potions. One gives you 10% damage and the other one gives you 7.5. And both of them persist through death. And that's only if you're racing somebody and you want to dish out more damage in them. Normally, I don't even use these because, our parties get through them pretty fast anyways. And also for my belt section, I use the Awakened Forger's box and a Wondrous Dragon at Legendary. I don't have the Mythic one, so I have the Legendary one, which gives me the bonus I need, which is 6% damage against dragons. All right, now let me show you how we cap these stats in battle. And they cap pretty easily too.
How dare you interrupt me? Slay these mortals and bring their skulls to my town.
Cannot win this battle unless we have an advantage in artillery.
Swing those hammers, slugs!
There we go. So that's about it. This is my dragon killing build. Feel free to copy it, feel free to follow it, or make decisions on your own to suit your needs, depending on the items you have. More builds are on the way, AoE and single target augmented, and AoE and single target striker builds. And they're probably going to be in this type of format too. Not too much over explaining, just the main points, and then the rest you could take it from there. Anyways, that's it for my dragon build. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Galactic here. Peace out. Stay safe.